speak English?
Yeah, I do. Why?
Got a question. After you die, what happens?
After you die, I don't know, man. I haven't died yet, so I can't tell you.
What do you think?
I think it's just, you know, I think you just die and that's it. There's nothing.
What about your soul?
My soul, I don't know if that's a thing, bro.
Let's say you're right. Let's say you die and nothing happens. You have no worry. But what if you're wrong? What if you die, you wake up in hell with no escape? Wouldn't that be tragic?
It would. How am I supposed to know, though?
Well, you and me, we're humans. We're limited. We can't really know for sure. That's why we have to look outside of ourselves to God. See, God, He made us. He told us what happens after we die. Our soul will be in heaven
Did
or
he?
hell.
Did he?
He did. The Bible tells you how to make peace with God, how to
Which
go to
one?
heaven. What's
Which
that?
God?
There can only be one true God. They can't all be the same.
I don't know, man.
There are many
I don't
things.
think the Bible's like. I don't think the Bible's a valid source of information.
If what you believe is wrong, would you want to know?
Huh?
If what you believe is wrong, would you want to know?
I guess. I don't think there's a way to know, though.
Let me ask you this then. How do you think we got here as humans?
How do it? Well, that depends. Are you asking, like, universe-wise or Earth-wise?
Everything. How did we end up here?
Well, I would say the universe got created by the Big Bang, and then after a couple of years, Earth was created. After other couple of years, life started evolving, and after another couple of years, we were here.
Have you ever heard about the problems with the Big Bang?
Which are?
Have you ever played dominoes before?
Yeah.
You know when you set up the dominoes and you knock them down and they fall on each other and they make a beautiful kind of a thing?
Mm-hmm.
When you trace that
What
domino,
causality?
what's
Are you
that?
talking about causality?
Sorry, what's that?
Are you talking about causality?
Yeah, I'm talking about the first cause. That first domino, when it falls down, something has to push it to give it an action for it to start. You know what I mean? It doesn't just fall by itself.
Well, I think you can say the same thing about God. You can just ask like, "Oh, who created God then?" And you can make an infinite chain of stuff creating other stuff. The fact that we don't know doesn't mean that a God did it.
Well,
People used to think rain was God, crops were God, sun was God. Everything was God because they didn't understand it. Just because we don't understand it doesn't mean God's behind it. It just means we don't know.
well, there's four different views of how the universe came to be. Main views. Have you heard those before?
Yeah.
The third one is the Big Bang, and like I was saying, the main problem with the Big Bang is the first cause. You can't really get something from nothing. Life, it never comes from non-life. Like when you see energy like a lightning bolt or a fire, you can't talk to it. It can't talk back to you. It has no consciousness. It's not alive in the same way that we are. It has no intelligence, no consciousness. Life always comes
Well,
from life.
I think intelligence is just a mix of flesh and electricity. Isn't that it?
It could be, but here's the thing. That flesh has an intelligence, a consciousness. You have a brain. You think, you can reason, you can hear me. You're not
Yeah,
just
exactly. So it's flesh and electricity.
You're not a non-living being. You're a combination. Your body might use electricity, but it is not solely electricity. Your consciousness, like if you don't talk and you think in your head, whose voice is that?
I would say that's your thoughts. Not necessarily has to be someone's voice.
Yeah, the thoughts are not necessarily physical, but yet you still have them. That's your mind. All I'm saying is that
They
there's
are they are they're the cause of electrical impulses in our brains. Wait, how did we get here? I thought we were talking about the Big Bang.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's the problem with the Big Bang. Well, there's three other views. One view is that the
Wait,
universe
wait,
is
no, no, wait. What's the problem with the Big Bang?
The first problem, of course, was like the dominoes, the first cause. You need a first cause to start the Big Bang in the first place. There has to be an action.
Okay, then what do you think is God's first cause?
Here's the You have to have a causer, and here's the difference between God and the Big Bang. God is not a physical being like energy or a physical matter like we are. He's a spirit. God is outside of time and space and matter. The Bible says that in the beginning, that's time, God is God, created, that's the first cause, the heavens, that's the universe, matter, that's earth. So God is a being that is outside of time, space, and matter. He created time, space, and matter. We are inside of time, space, and matter. That's all that we know. So when we try to measure reality, that's what we measure it by. That's why we cannot think outside of that, because we're limited by that. Does that make sense?
No, not really.
You have to
I
have,
mean, no, I guess the idea does make sense, but like, what doesn't make sense is how you can think that this is true.
well, you have to look around. You have to look around you and come up. You have to observe the galaxy around you to come up with plausible explanations, basically.
The difference between religion and science is that science doesn't just look around. Science experiments, and science comes with true results. Science comes up with facts. What you're doing is just your opinion, just your little hypothesis. You can't just claim this to be the truth just because you think so.
Well, there has to be a philosophical reason as to why science is true in the first place. You made a very good
Okay?
point.
What does that have to do with anything?
It has a lot to do with everything. Let me show you. You know, in order for science to work, you are very correct. You have to engage in experimentation, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have five senses that work reliably, right?
No, not really. That's why we need tools, because like we cannot rely on our senses.
Yes, but the tools aid your senses. You have to have working senses to use the tools in the first place.
Well, yeah.
So you have to assume that your senses are working reliably.
Mm-hmm.
Also in science, it's very important that the past has a bearing on the present and future. You know, you build on past experiments and discoveries.
Yeah.
And you have to believe that there's patterns that you're looking for in nature. You're looking for mathematical, uh, you have equations that have been proven to be true, and you're looking for those patterns. You're trying to confirm it when you're doing your experiments. It's called uniformity.
What?
You have to, when you're engaging in experimentation, you're looking for patterns, for similarities, in order to prove something is true.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things that I just talked about with science, they have to be assumed.
They have to be assumed.
Yeah.
Why?
Because if you're an atheist, you have no real way to prove that your senses are working properly. You just assume that they do.
So, like, if you're a believer, do you have a way to prove that your senses work properly?
Yeah, because you're made in the image of God. You have a creator, a first cause that made you with an intelligence. It's not just random chance. See, if we were just random chance, then we would have to assume the opposite way, that our
I
senses
mean,
aren't really reliable.
I mean, if God made us in His image, wouldn't we be perfect?
Well, we would be, except for we made the choice to follow our own path. That's called sin.
Okay, well, if we're not perfect, then there's perfect room for your senses not to be reliable, even though you're made to the image of God.
Yes, but you have to assume that your reasoning works in the first place, and that comes from intelligence,
But
not
like
random.
that's you can just say that to every idea. I could just say that to you as well.
But you have to go back to the beginning. Listen, if everything is random, you have no real way of knowing that your senses are reliable. And
Why would everything be random?
there's another problem too. You have to assume that in order for anything to work, you have to assume that there's order in the universe. But with the Big Bang, it would be the opposite. You would have order from chaos, and that never happens. You never get order out of an explosion. You only get more chaos. Something has to, you have to have a mind to create order. You have to bring things together. That's what we do when we do science and experiments.
No, I think order just happens to happen, man.
It never works that way, ever. Listen, if I
In
took all
which
the,
other
if let me give you an example. If I took like a box and I took all the parts of a like a car that you're gonna do a model car, I put the glue and I put all the parts together in a box, and I shook it up for like a million years. There's no chance that it's gonna come out as a perfect car. It's gonna be just a big mess. It's gonna be disorder. Just because you have
I think
time and chance doesn't mean order is going to come from it. You have to
I
have
think
a
if you
mind.
did it for infinite time though, if you did it for infinite time though, you know,
Uh-huh.
it could happen.
Yes, but the whole thing about chance is you have to have order to arrange the chance in the first place. You have to put the things together. You have to have all
No,
the you have to
just
have all the
because
components.
you view it as order doesn't mean it's order. You know, like order is something we interpret as humans. Order is not something that exists like as a universal concept. You know?
Yes, but we cannot deny what we see and how we operate. That's how science works.
What do you mean?
I mean, if atheism was true, then I would assume the opposite, that there is no order. That's that meaning that the chaos, explosion, things like that.
So there needs to be a God to be order? Is that what you're saying?
You need to have a mind and intelligence to order things together to even do experiments.
Why?
Why?
Why can
That's the whole
order
reason.
just
But
not happen?
that's the whole reason behind science. You're using your mind to order things to find out the truth.
Okay, yeah, the fact that there is a truth doesn't mean that there's a mind behind the truth.
The mind comes from the idea of the mind, though, means that there's something ordering it in the first place. It's like this. Think of it this way: the room that you live in.